Indiana football will go to the transfer portal for a starting quarterback in 2026, and Josh Hoover from TCU has some qualities that make him a no-brainer.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, and it is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every single day, and now the #1 sports podcasting network in the world. So thank you so much for making that so, and thank you to Game Time for sponsoring this episode. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Well, thank you so much for being here. We continue on here on the week of Christmas. I am traveling. I am not at the usual setup. So for those of you that watched or listened yesterday, you understand. And so if the quality is not up to the normal standard that you're used to, whether video, audio, just bear with me. We're traveling for the next couple of weeks and trying to get some good content out there for you, since it is a busy time for Indiana athletics. We'll talk about basketball at the end of today's show, as the Hoosiers are now on an off stretch, a much needed off stretch as they prepare for Big Ten play. Plus, we'll kind of react to the college football playoffs so far and the idea that G5 teams proved it. They shouldn't be in there, and what Indiana can expect from Bama and some of the other teams in the CFP. But we talk about the transfer portal for Indiana, and it's the hot topic around college football. The idea that the portal is not open, but my goodness, is the market on fire. And there's always one, right? There's always one position that is getting the most attention. No, it's not the running backs. No, it's not a linebacker. No, it's not a punter. It's the quarterback position. And it's the one that Indiana is all up in, because the main question is, who's going to be the signal caller for the Indiana Hoosiers in 2026? So we've talked about this a little bit, right? With Alberto Mendoza coming back and Fernando going to the NFL draft. Okay, we joke about it and we'd love for him to come back, but it's just not going to happen. Alberto is a good quarterback, and I think he can be a starter at the P4 level. I just don't think Indiana is going to go that direction in 2026. And we talked about Drew Mestemaker the other day, the North Texas transfer, nation's leading passer, all those sorts of things. But another name that came out a couple of days ago that we're just now getting to talking about here on the show is Josh Hoover, the TCU starting quarterback, who announced his intentions to enter the transfer portal. And when I saw this name pop up on my phone, I said, what a no-brainer for Indiana to try and go and get this guy. And then just a couple of minutes later, it was, oh, he has been linked to Indiana. There's some conversations. There's some possibility of this happening. And I said, oh, really? How about that? Because I think Josh Hoover has some qualities about him to where it is a match made in heaven for Curt Cignetti, Mike Shanahan, and this Indiana offense, because of how they run their system, how they manage their quarterbacks, and what they are able to do with them over the span of an entire year. That includes off season, right? The spring, the summer, and then throughout the fall as well. I think Josh Hoover is somebody that makes it's just a no-brainer for Indiana to at least give him a call. Will it work out? Will it actually happen? I don't know. But I think Indiana, it would be foolish not to reach out to Josh Hoover. Now, again, the portal is not open, so no technical movement or legal movement will be made until January 2nd. But you're going after somebody who is widely considered one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12 and one of the best quarterbacks in college football. Okay, Josh Hoover, top 10 passer in yards with 3,400, almost 3,500 passing yards this season. Also top 10 in the nation in passing touchdowns. Okay, with 29 passing scores for Josh Hoover this season. Now, he does have some issues. Okay, turnovers were a problem. He had 13 interceptions, so 13 times where he threw it to the wrong team. You got to get that cleaned up, right? And that's something that we have talked about With Fernando Mendoza, something Curtis Rourke was pretty good at was taking care of the football. Josh Hoover has a tendency to not do that. He also got sacked 18 times this year, which some of those are on him if you go back and watch the film. Some of those are just on his offensive line. And so don't be fooled by those things. I think those can get worked out. And I think Indiana runs a protected system offensively that just puts a quarterback in position to succeed, right? You go and get Curtis Rourke from the MAC and he comes in and is a superstar. You go and get Fernando Mendoza from California and he steps in and is a superstar. I think the way that Josh Hoover throws the football, he throws one of the prettiest balls in the country. He's able to avoid and evade and get out of the pocket and make plays last longer with his legs. He's someone that can throw it and hit a penny 70 yards down the field. He just makes so much sense for Indiana in the system that they run. And if you have an offensive line to protect him, man, Josh Hoover could be your answer. This is a guy who completed 66% of his passes this season, and I told you threw for 29 touchdowns on the year. This dude is legit, okay? He has the ability to run. All right, his longest run is like, I don't know, like 12 or 13 yards or something this season. So he has the ability to do that, but that's not his strength. He wants to drop back, get protected, and dice up a defense. And that's exactly what he does. Sound familiar? Yeah, it sounds like Fernando Mendoza right now, which is why Indiana will be in the mix for Josh Hoover when he officially enters the transfer portal. Now, how much money will he be asking for? We're going to have to wait and see. How much money will Indiana give to him? I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. But I do believe that Indiana will be in the mix here. And whether it's Josh Hoover, whether it's Mestamaker, Sam Levitt is out there as well. We need to talk more about him as we go along. The Hoosiers are going to get somebody. All right, they're not going to come up empty-handed. I can tell you that that's not going to happen, that they are not going to swing and miss on everybody and just say, well, oh, well, I guess Alberto it is. That's not how this is going to go down. So I think Josh Hoover is a no-brainer to at least call him. I think it's a no-brainer to at least reach out and have a conversation and see if the two sides can come to an agreement because, yes, that is the terminology we have to use now. But Indiana would win a lot of football games with Josh Hoover as their quarterback, and I think that the Hoosiers will absolutely reach out. I think he'll listen, and I think it's a very possible option for the Hoosiers starting quarterback to be Josh Hoover in 2026. All right, coming up here on Locked On Hoosiers, we'll stick with football, and we'll talk about the college football playoffs, and it was entertaining. It just kind of went the way a lot of people thought it would, including the G5s, who may have all of eliminated themselves for good. We talk about that coming up next here on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. As I try to find, there it is, trying to find new setup, and I'm telling you, it's working remote is a little bit tough. But hey, today's episode brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like college football season. Tailgates, packed stadiums, and being right there in the middle of it all. The energy, the bands, the moments that you remember forever. But actually getting tickets, yeah, that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout to where you can't even afford them. But that's why Game Time gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I open the Game Time app and look at upcoming college football games, including the Rose Bowl, okay, and was surprised at how fast it was to find great seats. I love being able to see the view from my seat in any venue at any time before I buy it, so I know exactly what I'm getting, and I've done it several times with several different venues, and it works every time. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Be sure you download the Game Time app today. Again, download the Game Time app today. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. And if this is your first listen or your first watch every single day, and thank you for making us that so and making us the #1 sports podcasting network in the world, you need to check out our Everydayer Club. It's $5 a month or $50 for the year. You're going to get access to an ad-free audio version of Locked On Hoosiers every single day right to you, compatible with Apple, Spotify, and every other major podcasting app. Plus, we've got a Locked On Everydayer members-only Discord that we're hanging out in right now. Ton of fun. We're in there talking about basketball and football and the playoffs and things. So you get access to that, plus a whole lot more for just $5 a month. Okay, so go check that out at lockedonhoosiers.supercast.com. No www, okay? Just type it in, lockedonhoosiers.supercast.com, or the link will be in the description below. I'm telling you, this is going to be so much fun. It's a way for us to kind of connect a little bit more too. So very exciting stuff there with the Everydayer Club. Also, what's exciting is the college football playoffs. Kinda, right? Kinda exciting. And some of the games were great. Alabama, Oklahoma, good game. Absolutely. It was. Miami, Texas A&M, even though it was a defensive slugfest, great game. The other two, not so much, as Ole Miss jumps out to a 14-0 lead. 14-0 over Tulane. And then Oregon dropped 100-piece, it seemed like, on James Madison, who I know put up 34 points and a buttload of offense and whatever. They lost by 3 scores, okay? And it went exactly like I thought they would cover on a backdoor score late in the game. I think they did it with under a minute to play. This was what we were afraid of, right? This was the problem with having guaranteed G5 teams and then allowing another one to slide in there as well. I put this on the ACC for being so bad outside of Miami, who, props to them. I didn't give them credit, but they did. They won the game. But the ACC champion was so bad in Duke that another G5 team got in, and they got obliterated as well. James Madison and Tulane, I'm sorry, they didn't belong on the same field. And it showed for 40 minutes. It showed for 4 quarters in this game, or in these 2 games. They didn't belong on the field. And I know that there are people who think it needs to be fair and they need their shot or whatever. But this is not the first time. This happened last year too. You just had 1 team instead of 2 and it took an extra game because of the buys and all that crap, right? The other 2 games in the college football playoff were fantastic. Bama, Oklahoma was a really good game. Obviously, we were all locked into that because we wanted to watch both teams and see how it went. And my goodness, did Oklahoma ever give that game away? They had that thing on lockdown. And the nation's best kicker, who just went AWOL and couldn't hit a PAT, it seemed like. And Alabama comes back and wins the game. And secretly, I wanted to play Alabama more than Oklahoma because I think Oklahoma is still the better team, but they didn't win because the best team doesn't always win, right? And then you had the Miami, Texas A&M game, which I don't know what happened to the offenses there. Defenses played fine, played pretty darn good, actually. And Miami goes on the road to the SEC and takes down the Aggies. So those 2 games were fine, but hopefully this was the final straw for us to realize, hey, maybe the G5 teams don't belong with the big boys. And I think they could go do their own thing. I think they could have their own playoff, their own national championship, whatever the case may be. I don't know the ultimate answer and the ultimate fix. I just know they don't belong with what we're doing right now. And no, if there is a separate G5 playoff, I don't think there should be a way for them to play into the big playoff because that's what we're trying to eliminate. The Tulanes of the world and the Miami of Ohio's, they don't belong on the same field with P4 programs. It is what it is, even in today's new era of college football, right? And we thought that could fix it, but it hasn't, because all those teams lose all their players and all their coaches to who? The P4 teams and the P4 programs. And so I still believe that the big teams and big programs of college football, which Indiana has put itself in position to be a part of, by the way, I think they will eventually take their ball and go play somewhere else. I think they're going to tell the NCAA to kick rocks. They're going to tell the college football playoff to kick rocks. I think all of that is going to go away because I think guys like Tony Petitti at the Big Ten, Greg Sankey at the SEC, and specific members of the ACC and Big 12 will have the argument to say, we can run this better. We can do this ourselves. We don't need you. We don't need the NCAA. We don't need your crappy leadership. We'll do it ourselves. We don't need the college football playoff committee. We'll make our own. We'll have our own selection process. And I think that day is coming. And I think this year's playoff accelerated that idea. Now, the games that are coming up this upcoming round of the college football playoff, they're awesome. There are great games coming up on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. On New Year's Eve, you have Miami and Ohio State. And I'm not going to make my predictions just yet, but I have a feeling Miami's defense will keep them in this football game. I still don't trust Carson Beck, and I know he played fine against Texas A&M, had the one big drive where they scored the touchdown, but they will keep themselves around in that game. But I saw something the other day that said Ohio State and Ryan Day, he's taking over play calling offensively from Brian Hartline. Interesting stuff there. So that'll be a good one. I think Ole Miss and Georgia should be a good one, right? That's a rematch from the SEC regular season. I think Alabama and Indiana could be a good game. I like the Hoosiers to win by double digits. And then Oregon, Texas Tech is just fascinating. I mean, that's right now, our friends at FanDuel have that at a 1.5 spread. Okay. So that should be a really, really good one as well. So looking forward to all of the games in the college football playoff. So I really do think that all the games coming up in this round of the playoff are going to be good. And look, this is how it should be from here on out, right? The rest of the game should be good from this week to the Final Four to the national championship game. They should all be good. Hopefully Indiana continues to get a good draw, right? As of right now, you have Alabama. We'll get the winner of Oregon and Texas Tech. So either a rematch with the Ducks or a first-time matchup with Texas Tech in the playoff, who is just extremely talented defensively. So should be a lot of fun. I just think the college football playoff has some things to work on, some things to fix, including the G5 not being involved. I hate to be that guy. I hate to be a hater, but I'm going to be a hater because they showed it up front. They showed it on display for the entire country to see twice that they just don't belong. So we'll see if it gets fixed. But of course, Indiana will play on New Year's Day. They'll take on Alabama. I love the matchup, by the way. I think the Hoosiers should run away with that one, but we'll see how it goes coming up against Alabama in the Rose Bowl. We will take a break. We'll come back and talk about Indiana basketball as the Hoosiers head into an off stretch and one that is much needed and what they should focus on during their time off. We'll talk about that and wrap up the show right after this. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. So maybe you were betting or live betting the college football playoff games this past weekend. And some of them were fun. Others were not. You could have live bet Alabama when they were down by 10? And you probably could have won some cold hard cash from our friends at FanDuel. More games coming up in the college football playoff. NFL games were wild this past weekend. You can do all of that with FanDuel, okay? So if you want to be also, by the way, Indiana 6.5 point favorite as of this recording with our friends at FanDuel over Alabama in the college football playoff. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast and so can you. And I would like to start. I would like to talk about actually, where Indiana did this early in the game. and they did it late in the game too. They pushed the basketball. They got up and down the floor. They were looking for advantages, and I know it's Siena. They're going to have it almost every time. But I think with some of these Big Ten teams that we're talking about, that Indiana will be outmatched, for lack of a better word. That's what they're going to have to do. Get up and down the floor, run past them, get transition buckets, and then have to play some legitimate defense. I thought the Hoosiers did that for 40 minutes, even though the energy wasn't quite there in the second half. But that's a like for me, is taking points where you can get them, and that's how it's going to be for Indiana, I think.
Yeah, especially in the second half of games when teams adjust after halftime to whatever you're doing offensively. I think transition basketball. Reed Bailey's a guy that I want to point out here. It wasn't tonight for sure. They got to get him out on the break. That guy's an athlete. They've got to get him out on the break. Nick Dorn out on the break.
Yeah.
To kind of find ways to get to the free throw and get cheap buckets. It's hard to score possession after possession in the Big Ten when you're playing half court.
Yeah.
You got to create layups and dunks. I mean, just straight up. It's a lot easier to throw it down if you're a 6'10" guy with nobody around instead of having two people grabbing at the ball and they don't call, like that play at the end. I forget which guy it was. Indiana got like fouled by 4 people and the ball got struck. And it's like they don't call anything. And they're just trying to get these games over. These refs are ready to go home. You have to be ready to find a way to up-tempo it. So I think that's a good point. Indiana does it a little bit. Now I want to see the big guys get in there and do some of that too.
Yeah, this comment from Charles James says it's not the lack of aggression, it's their half-court offense. If they do not get a good shot in transition, they struggle in the half-court against everybody. And you're right, but something else that I'll add that I actually liked tonight that Indiana did, and you talked about Taton Conerway earlier, Brian, it's the dribble penetration, right? Getting the offense inside the three-point line. Siena was so darn scared that they didn't know what to do, so they just collapsed 3 and 4 guys on the ball handler. How many times did Wilkerson get in there and then whip a pass behind his head or double-handed pass over to the corner? Nick Dorn had a couple of threes that he knocked down because of that, right? The Hoosiers are going to have to do that in Big Ten play too. They're going to have to dribble into the towers that they see against Michigan or Michigan State or, any of these teams that you go up, Purdue, that you go up against. You're going to have to get in there, probably take a bump, and then get rid of that basketball and hope that they collapse. And if they don't, then you're going to have to finish at the rim. That's talking about Taton Conerway. That's talking about Lamar Wilkerson. That's, believe it or not, Connor Enright's going to have to score somehow too. But I like the aggression with the basketball tonight. And you get paint touches, even to just the high elbow. The defense has to respect that. That takes off the pressure on the outside, and that will allow Indiana to do what they ultimately want to do, Brian, which is shoot the 3 ball.
Penetration creates driving lanes that everybody gets embarrassed by when somebody gets a blow by in a layup. The coach is yelling at you. That next possession, they're going to sink.
Yeah.
So you can get shots. You're absolutely right. There was a couple of them tonight, but Conerway, I know he turns it over some. I think finding that happy medium is something they can do. But tonight, I mean, Siena's guys couldn't stay in front of him. No. Whenever they switched, it was really bad news bears for them. Big Ten guys, more length, and probably another block or two. But you do also have the opportunity to get their bigs in foul trouble. Indiana's not going to win against Michigan, Purdue, Michigan State, unless they're getting those teams in foul trouble. You could argue Conerway is the most important guy because, like, DeVries is not going to go to the rack off a spin move, etc. I mean, it's possible, but that's just not likely. And, Indiana basketball is not at that level right now. And then Lamar can do it a little bit, but that's not his forte. So Enright doesn't want to shoot it. So that pretty much narrows it down. It's got to be Conerway. He's got to get in that lane and create some opportunities for others.
Yeah, it was a mismatch of all sorts tonight as Indiana takes down Siena 81-60, and a little bit of a shorter likes and dislikes segment because I do want to get into this idea, Brian, that we are now done with non-conference play. Indiana basketball played 2 games in 3 days, and now they're off until January 4th when Big Ten play picks back up, right? The Big Ten restart against Washington coming up on January 4th. What's your overall feeling? And I'll answer this too, but overall feeling for Indiana, who now, right, with non-conference play being done, of course, you do have 2 Big Ten games under your belt already that Indiana split. You lost the game on the road to Minnesota, which still makes my blood boil. And then you absolutely blew out Penn State because you got hot behind the line. You head into January. 10-3 overall, 1-1 in Big Ten play. You lost your 2 big non-conference games against Louisville and Kentucky. Your overall feelings, Brian, about where the Hoosiers are heading into 2026?
Slightly ahead of where I thought they were because of their lack of size. I didn't know if they would even be competitive with teams like Kentucky and Louisville. And I was at both those. Louisville is way better than Kentucky, don't get me wrong, but they were just finding their self and getting into a rhythm in all those games.
Yeah.
They had moments. I just don't think they have enough talent to be like a top 10 team this year, but they're maximizing what they have. This is a team that you probably wouldn't want to play at the end of the year in the Big Ten tournament. They could knock somebody off. Do I think they can make the NCAA? Yeah, they possibly could. But they're, again, offense has got to find a few more pieces, and they got to get more efficient down low offensively and defensively too. So if they can do that, this is a team nobody's going to want to play in February and early March. But they've got a ways to go. I honestly, though, think they're ahead of where I thought they'd be due to the lack of size.
Yeah, I mean, if this team didn't shoot the way that it does on certain nights, I think they would be in a lot more trouble than they are, right? I mean, let's say they don't have those games against Marquette or Penn State and things like that where they drop triple digits. I mean, who knows what this team would be like, but 10-3, 1-1 in Big Ten play, and you have a relatively favorable Big Ten restart with Washington and Maryland. Two teams that are nothing crazy. Okay, Maryland is 6-6. Washington right now on the season is 7-4. So you have a chance to stack a couple of wins. Washington at home, Maryland on the road. Then you have 4 straight top 25 games, and then 5 of your first 6 after that are against top 25 teams. Nebraska, Michigan State, Iowa, Michigan, Rutgers, the lone non-top 25 game, and then your first game of the year against the Boilermakers. So that's where Indiana's going to have to get somebody or a couple of somebodies, Brian, get hot, find another shooter, find another scorer, find an X factor, and get some wins. But overall, I'm excited for what could be. I think is the best way for me to explain it. I'm excited for what could be with this Indiana team. If they start to find themselves a little bit, if Nick Dorn begins to be a real threat for the Hoosiers behind the arc, if you can get Sam Alexis and Reed Bailey to have any sort of confidence down low, and you continue to get effective play from Lamar Wilkerson, Taton Conerway, and Tucker DeVries, I think the Hoosiers have a chance to beat some people this year. I think you have a chance to be a 7 or 8 seed in the NCAA tournament and make a run. Who you never know. But there's also the flip side of it is what could not be, which is very scary for Indiana, which is a long stretch of losing games the same way, teams having the formula to beat you, and you have no way to overcome that. That's the scary part. But I think the Hoosiers will be okay, is kind of where I'm at with, a week and a half or so of no games for Indiana. That's kind of where I sit right now.
Yeah, there's going to be a few games they get smoked. I think that's pretty inevitable because of the lack of size. That's inevitable. But they're also going to beat some teams that didn't think they were going to lose to Indiana because they're going to hit. They can score, man.
Yeah.
Indiana hit 15 threes the other day. It's just they can shoot the basketball. But you have guys that can shoot like Indiana. They got 2 out of the top 5 or 10 shooters in the country when they're on, like that. Wilkerson and Reeves, those guys can really, really shoot. And now Dorn's starting to shoot. I'm curious who it's going to be. There's going to be a game Indiana plays on the road that they beat somebody that's better than them because they get hot, and it's just there's nothing the other team can do about it.
Yeah.
And they're probably going to have a game just the opposite of that too. They'll be frustrating at times because you live by the 3, you die by it, but they'll be fun to watch.
Indiana wraps up non-conference play with an 81-60 victory over Siena. They have Washington coming to Assembly Hall on January 4th. He is Brian Smith, host of the Portal Podcast on our Locked On Podcast Network. I'm Jacob Goins, host of Locked On Hoosiers. Make sure you subscribe to both of our YouTube channels. Follow us on your audio platforms. We will have a normal episode of Locked On Hoosiers coming out tomorrow where we talk about quarterback drama in the transfer portal and a whole lot more. So more coming up tomorrow on Locked On Hoosiers. We appreciate you being here. Until next time, Hoosier fans, stay safe, and we'll talk to you later.